Super nice to now introduce an exciting session to actually give you also an overview of what's the ecosystem when it comes to urban tech innovation here in Berlin. My personal story, I've also spent like probably 6-7 years trying to like figure out a lot of like what's going on the ground here in Berlin. But there is so much that it can sometimes feel really confusing, and it can be hard to really get, cut through the noise and really get to the movers and shakers. And this is why we thought it would be so good to have a few short inputs from some of the important kind of stakeholders here, and also trying to give you a great flavor of what makes it special, and maybe who you can also reach out in the next step to. So without further ado, our first input will be by Norbert Herrmann from the Senate Department of Economics in Berlin. And Norbert, you are Mr. Startup for the Senate. Unfortunately, you are missing your signature cappy today, but I'm sure we can like do this in the post-production. But I'll just turn it over to you, and just to tell us a little bit what's happening already in terms of thinking, in terms of like mapping of the startup ecosystem from the perspective of the city authority.
Thank you so much, Jonas. Thanks for having me here. I'm very proud to present Berlin, but I'm also very aware that I don't present Berlin. I only present a small part of the Senate Department. So the big ecosystem is really something big that has been grown by itself. And we as Senate Department, we support where we can. So we try to find out where are some bottlenecks, and this is the place where we support. So the Senate supports startups by the Investment Bank of Berlin, by Berlin Partner. We will hear some people after me speaking from Berlin Partner, the business association from Berlin. And there are multiple other players. So we support startups, but on the other hand, startups can support us. This is of even more importance for Berlin, because we know there's a big ecosystem and you guys can do a lot for us. And what we try to do is reach out and put your ideas into being, which is not easy, I know. But together with Urban Impact, we managed to have something special. So for myself, I have, Kolja, would you show the startup map? We prepared something we called startup-map.berlin, which is an attempt to show all startups in Berlin. It's more than 3,000. It depends on how you count. So younger than 10 years, all only headquarter in Berlin. I think it's 3,100 and something. If it's more than only the headquarters, it's more than 4,000. You can use this map. It's publicly available, startup-map.berlin. And what you see there is we have, if you go to the dashboard, you see we have a urban tech startups landscape, which was built by Jonas and his team, his whole team, to be honest. And I think we're going to see an update pretty soon. So if you look at startups, you can find a lot of different ones. One of them is urban tech. If you see, then Kolja, if you look at the public services on this very side. So I was talking about us supporting startups, startups supporting us. And here on the public service page, you can see how we try to support startups, how we try to connect startups. We don't have a solution for everything, but we try to have a solution for the main things like internationalization, like public funding, like infrastructure, like talent, like local and global connectedness. And today is a kind of very global connectedness, and I'm keen to give the word here to the next speaker to find out how this global connectedness can work even better. Thanks for coming to Berlin.
All right. Hi, just to give a short introduction. Hi, my name is Sophie, and I work for Urban Impact as well. And today we would like to show you an updated version, like give you a couple of insights of the Berlin urban tech landscape. And we prepared a couple of slides. We're just going to wait until they start. Perfect. All right. Yeah, so the Berlin urban tech landscape. Just connecting where Norbert left us. We knew about the Berlin startup map, and we thought, well, how many startups of those do have an urban focus, and who are the ones that actually come from Berlin. So we were like looking around and didn't realize or didn't find any other startup map which had like a strong urban tech focus. So we started to do our own little research and partnered with Dealroom, got access to their database, and also kind of like started looking around and maintaining our own little database, which grew with our expanding network. So in a quite short amount of time, we managed to identify around 100 startups which are based in Berlin and tackling urban challenges. And so yeah, after that, we realized we kind of have to put them into categories, because you can't just like leave them as this. So we identified 5 main categories, which you can see here, which are mobility, livability, enabling urban tech, IoT, infrastructure and utilities, and gov and civic tech. And as these categories are quite broad for 100 startups to be in those categories, we looked at all of them and identified use cases. And from that, identified further subcategories, which you can see in the lighter bubbles. But let me tell you that those subcategories are not like static. So some of the startups you will see in the next slide are actually like crossing categories. We also brought together the urban tech ecosystem from Berlin in March 2020. And after that, we still had people reaching out to us to ask us to add them to the database. So today, we have around 130 urban tech startups. If we go on to the next slide, which you can see here. And as you can see, we have also 2 really big players. We have Tier, e-scooter manufacturer, and shared mobility on the left. And we also have, Infarm at urban farming, at infrastructure and utilities. So they're quite big players. But we also have startups which are actually crossing those categories. For example, at the energy sector, we have Swappy, which is a battery swapping station provider, which already has more than 15 stations in Berlin where you can swap different kinds of batteries for micromobility. So they also address not only electric vehicles, but also shared mobility startups, and can work together with them. And then we also have Enway. Enway is a startup which produces autonomous sweepers. So obviously they are tackling the challenge of urban waste management. But on the other hand, they're also producing an autonomous vehicle for the urban environment. So as you can see, these startups can really make a difference for the city of Berlin only. And just imagine if they like scale globally. But the problem is, we all know that startups do not only need visibility, but they also need opportunities to engage in. If we go on to the next slide, I can explain you why. So we at Urban Impact, we build CityOps. And CityOps is a platform which basically provides startups and SMEs with relevant opportunities for them, which they can filter by different categories by the taxonomy which I showed earlier. And CityOps also provides tenders, challenges, grants, awards, accelerators, incubators. And it doesn't really matter where you're coming from, because CityOps currently covers more than 60 cities worldwide. So maybe, even for your startup, if you're watching this might actually have a relevant opportunity for your startup to engage in. Because this, in the end, is what our mission at Urban Impact is. We want to connect different stakeholders of the ecosystem. And yeah, we encourage you to become maybe a better user of CityOps, or if you know of an opportunity which might be relevant for a startup all around the world, to just submit it through the website. And you can visit it at ops.city. And yeah, from that, I would like to hand over the word to either Robert or Karolin. All right, Robert.
Hey, Karolin, if you are okay with that. So a very warm welcome from me, and I will quickly, or just a second, how much minutes do I have? Circa, like 5? 7? Hello?
You're far away from the microphone. Hallo Robert, du hast 3 bis 5 Minuten.
Okay, good. And you mentioned I'm far away from the microphone. How should I interpret that?
Robert, it's like a bit like slapstick now, but no. I mean, so I was far away from the microphone. That's why my answer took a bit longer. You are perfectly fine, and your time goes now.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me share a screen. Could you please allow to share my desk? This is of course vital. You want to change the host? Yes, thank you very much. Dear participants, my name is Robert Lenk and I come from the Berlin Economical Development Agency, and I have the nice task to introduce you into the complexity of our smart city ecosystem in Berlin. You should see right now a very chaotic pattern of, well, dots. Yeah, but behind that, you know, there is the whole smart city intelligence of the Berlin smart city ecosystem. But let's start with it step by step. So let me exclude some of them. And we have here Verwaltung, administration. Basically, all these players you see right now here, they are mapped by us, by the smart city unit of Berlin Partner. And they are all relevant for administrative processes in terms of smart city. Smart city is a buzzword and it contains a minimum of 6 columns of topics. It's mobility, infrastructure, administration. It is living, housing, yeah, all of these aspects. So we map them over here. But of course, administration without players is nothing. Therefore, I would like to enhance this map with the public companies. Yeah? Public companies, especially in the housing sector and in the infrastructural sector. So they have a special relation to the several departments of the administration. And we mapped them here, like the Berlin traffic company, the waste removal, etc., etc. Besides that, we have, especially in the public sector, in combination with the private sector, we have often the phenomenon or the legal entity of an association. Yeah? So we mapped as well the association and the combination and the value the associations are creating and the network they are creating. Yeah? Then in a nice yellow, these are the civilian initiatives like NGOs, foundations and NPOs. And of course, economy. Now in a very nice blue. By the way, economy, you see these big spiders in the web, right? Like the super spreaders in the nowadays Corona language. This, for example, is the Berlin +1, the DIA, the Innovation Agency, but these guys here, you should know them quite well. Urban Impact Berlin. Yes, you see that Urban Impact is a super spreader, of course, in the Berlin smart city ecosystem. By the way, of course, we can clear this view if we fade the others out. So this here is the spreading of the urban impact into the Berlin smart ecosystem. And you see it's nice and colorful, and that is very, very important. The more colorful it is, the better is the spread, of course, of the information, of the smart city impulse they are spreading. So if a blue dot is just sending to other blues, they stay in the solar system, in the star system of the economy, which is color blue. But here we see that it's a variety, like it should be. Yeah. So the urban impact is touching all the different columns of the smart city stakeholder criteria. And last but not least, science with a nice magenta color. And science is as well extremely important with the impulses towards economy, towards associations, and of course administration. So now you know how we did it to map the complexity, but what is the purpose and what can we do now with that? It's not just a hobby of, for example, me or Karolin. No, this is a tool. It's the foundation, it's the basement for the smart city building we want to create in the future. Many stakeholders are coming to us after some networking sessions, after some events, tell us, oh, you know what, I know a company, they are busy as well with smart city. They do something with smart city. And you hear it over the year, I don't know, 10, 20, 50 times. Yeah? And we said, okay, now stop it. We have to map it. We have to show everybody who's interested in that ecosystem or every professional in the smart city complexity, how the structure is made. And we offer this tool, of course, for free for all our network members of the Smart City Berlin network. By the way, we are as well a big spider in the web. Here, this is our unit. And come on, let's focus. I like this focus option. Yes, here we go. Nice and colorful. And so we offer this tool for strategic decisions within organizations. As soon as we look all together on this map, decisions, ideas, networking makes just more sense. And it can help organizations for internal decisions to make a more intelligent and a more strategic decision towards an altogether smart city.
Robert, this is very impressive. Thank you so much. How long did it take you to create this beautiful map?
To be honest, Corona just made it possible. We had so much time, especially in March and April, to focus on that, and it was with at least 2 persons, 2 months. 2 persons, 2 months, but that was just the basic and the basic setup. This map is growing. For example, the urban impact data I received in July. And still some data is coming in. So we have a questionnaire which the participants have, they have to fill it out. And then we put the connections in manually. Of course, there is no artificial intelligence behind it. It's the robot intelligence behind it.
All right. All right. Thank you, Robert, so much. If you want to end the screen share, we can just briefly see you again to wave goodbye. And then I'll pass over right away to your colleague, Karolin, as well.
Yes, of course. Ending the screen share. Yeah. So you didn't see me the whole time.
Now we see you again.
Yeah. I hope that this introduction and especially the zoom-ins and zoom-outs, that they were like technically for you nice and followable. And of course, contact me or one of our department in person. You can get as well a free guided tour to the Berlin Smart City Network.
And hopefully by you, Robert. We'll definitely come back to this. All right, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and it's really incredible what you put together. I think this has long been missing in the city because we have such a decentralized ecosystem. So again, kudos to this. And with this, bye-bye, Robert, and I'll hand over now to Karolin.
Thank you so much, Jonas, and bye-bye also, Robert. Well, my name is Karolin, and I am also with Berlin Partner, where I am responsible for all startup activities. Well, and Jonas said to me, Karolin, there are also a lot of international startups listening today, and that's why I want to tell you a little bit more about the internationalization opportunities you have here in Berlin as a Berlin-based startup, but also as an international startup. Because we at Berlin, we run a program called Start Alliance. Don't mix it up with Star Alliance, it had nothing to do with the airlines. So Start Alliance, which is a network of international startup hotspots like New York, Tel Aviv, Shanghai, London, Paris, and of course Berlin. And why do we do that? We run programs, something like soft landing programs, in order to help international companies, mainly startups and scale-ups, to settle here in Berlin, and vice versa, to help Berlin-based startups to go abroad. We do that by having industry-specific batches. That means several times a year we run a batch, either an outbound batch where we take Berlin-based startups to another city to expand to a different market, or we take international startups and help them in a one-week program to settle here in Berlin. We offer them a co-working space. We do how to do HR or marketing in Germany. We have a demo day with pitches with investors. We meet bigger corporates to find new clients, all of that. So if you're interested in something like that, as a Berlin-based company to expand to other markets, or as an international company, startup, scale-up, coming to Berlin, just check out our Twitter or our LinkedIn profile. Again, it's Start Alliance with a T at the end, and you can stay tuned on our programs. We will kick off our digital version of our batches in October with a program on female founders. So if you want to know more about that, stay tuned on our social media channels. But I would also like to touch a little bit on the topic, what other opportunities for internationalization you have as a Berlin-based company if you want to internationalize. There are also other programs that you can use. For example, right now we are here at the AsiaBerlin Summit, and this AsiaBerlin program also tries to foster the connection between ecosystems in Asia and in Berlin. So if you check out their website, you can see that, for example, with Jakarta, they have many programs for exchange. So check out theirs, and you have other things like the German Startup Association. They implement a program called GINSAP, which fosters the connection and soft landing of companies between Germany and India. You have something like the government-run German Accelerator, which supports German startups to go abroad in a small, short, I think it's a 3-month accelerator program abroad. So you can see, I hope that we have so many opportunities as Berlin-based and as an international startups to expand your business. And so I hope I will see you soon in either of those programs coming to Berlin, because we are very much looking forward to it. So, and with that, dear Jonas or Sophie, I will hand over to you directly.
All right, so I'd like to see my slides, hopefully not. Robert, super. Is the clicker working? Can I use that to control the slides? Perfect. All right. Then, hi, everyone. So I think I'm closing out this round. So my name is Victoria Boeck. I work for the Technologiestiftung Berlin, so the Technology Foundation Berlin. And I was just going to present a few of our projects in a speedy 5 minutes. I actually think my position now sort of at the end fits really well, because these conversations about the startup ecosystem, trying to map the actors, it was really interesting for me to then see where we fit into this, and I did see our names popping up. So we approached this topic of urban innovation more through a civic tech lens, which you saw as one of the spheres in Urban Impact's analysis of the urban tech ecosystem. So we're really focused on open source, open data, and technological innovation for the common good, but then by virtue of being an open source and focusing on open data, also creating output from which the entire ecosystem can benefit. The Technologiestiftung Berlin, so the Technology Foundation, as the name would suggest, is a non-profit foundation. We are funded sort of complicatedly through one of the investment banks in Berlin and have very close ties to the Berlin city administration. And we generally have a focus about putting technologies in context for the city of Berlin. So helping people understand what a given technology means for maybe the government in Berlin, for the economy in Berlin, for the citizens of Berlin. So topics like AI or smart buildings, Internet of Things, even blockchain are all topics we've explored specifically from this Berlin lens. One of our branches, which I work for, or one of the departments of the Stiftung, is the Ideation and Prototyping Lab. And as that name would suggest, we have a specific focus in this part of the Stiftung of not just researching and fostering conversation around technological innovation, but then rather ourselves showing what's possible. What can these innovations look like? What could we do as a city using open source technology, using open data to create benefit and value for the citizens as well as for the government in Berlin? So one example of a project that we released 2 summers ago was a website that shows the location of where in Berlin you can go swimming, so where there are swimming spots on lakes and rivers, and not just where those locations are, but where the water quality is actually currently sufficient or safe to be able to swim in those locations. So this project was a consortium initiative between the Technologiestiftung and some other city actors that were also mentioned in these ecosystem diagrams, where we were actually then able to use like a real-time model using real-time weather data to predict where in the city water quality might suddenly be declining as a result of heavy rain, which can have an effect on especially the water quality of rivers in Berlin. So this was an effort to provide value to citizens, to make it accessible to them, this information of where to go swimming, as well to make it easier for the government, for example, to better communicate to citizens what these up-to-date health values, health readings are for these swimming spots, so that they have to answer fewer individual queries from citizens. So that's a good example of the kind of focuses that we have, is really value for government, value for citizens. And then also generating open data along the way, because the health measurements, the measurements of the bacteria in the water, are also available as open data. Another initiative that we have, which is actually the project that I specifically work on, is this initiative ODIS, which is short for Open Data Informationsstelle, so like an open data info point. And the goal of ODIS is to offer direct support to employees of the Berlin City Administration with the publishing of open data, so helping them understand why they would want to do that, what the value of open data is, even for the government itself, as well as what data they ought to be publishing. So here we really try to have an emphasis on helping the government understand who the users of their data would be. For example, members of the startup ecosystem are absolutely a huge part of this potential target group, and then helping them to better understand what the value of their data is, including through interactive projects where, again, we work with the government to develop prototypes or visualizations that make tangible what the value and potential usage of their data is, so that once again, we're not just talking at them or explaining to them, it would be good if you would do this, but rather saying, let's do this together. We're going to show you exactly what the value of publishing your data is and what's possible, what kinds of insights you might gather from it if you visualize it. And then one of the most recent initiatives at the Technologiestiftung is the City Lab Berlin. So this is a joint initiative between the Mayor's Office of Berlin and the Technologiestiftung. So it's an initiative of the government, but the Technologiestiftung is the one that actually operates the space. And with the City Lab, we've created an actual physical location where members of the Berlin community, including the city administration itself, have the opportunity to come to this location and to work collaboratively and innovatively on projects that have significance for the whole city. So here, especially the topic smart city is a big point of consideration for us, and even the City Lab is going to be involved in the implementation of a new smart city strategy for Berlin through a grant program that the City of Berlin recently won through a federal initiative. So you'll be seeing a lot more of the City Lab soon within the smart city sphere within Berlin. But an example of a project that we've completed within the City Lab, which was extremely successful, was our website or platform Gießden Kiez, which into English doesn't translate as cutely into like water your neighborhood. And so the idea of Gießtein Kiez is that we created a platform where you could see the locations of individual trees in the city using open data from the city of Berlin. And so you can see plotted on a map, as you see with these points, where there are trees in the city, and not just where they are, but also some information about them, like what kind of tree it is, how old the tree is, again, all of this information in the open data set. And then you have the opportunity to actually understand what the potential watering needs of this tree are, and to create an account and actually become like a sponsor for an individual tree and say, I'm going to take care of this tree, I've been watering it, so that people in your community can see, okay, maybe here's another tree that I can take care of. And the reason that we brought this project to life is because Berlin, like so many other cities, is experiencing increasingly hot and dry summers as a result of climate change. And we saw an opportunity here to blend our expertise of innovative digital project development using open data, open source prototypes, this is all open source, to create something from which the whole city of Berlin could benefit. And because it's open source, that means other initiatives within Berlin that maybe want to build on this idea or adapt it for something else have the opportunity to take the code and use it for that, or other cities across Germany or across the world potentially also have the opportunity to look at this platform and maybe create their own instance of it to also engage their own citizens in keeping trees and other greenery in the city watered through periods of climate change. So that was a relatively quick blow through of our project at the Technologiestiftung. Like I said, though, I see ourselves as just as much a part of this ecosystem as the startups and as the other entities. So I'm really happy that I could come here and present our projects, and I hope this was interesting for you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tori. As usual, a tour de force through all the amazing work that you're doing at both the Technology Foundation and the City Lab. But I want to thank all our speakers. I think this was an incredible overview. It took many of us also, whether from the startup side or from the city side, took us usually years to get to this kind of like overview. And I think the very basic foundation of any well-functioning ecosystem that we can create is some level of transparency to start out with, to actually know who needs to talk to whom, who should be having a conversation with whom. And so I'll come a little bit to the wrap-up also of our day. It's been a really long day. We have covered so many things. Maybe just a few things that stuck out in my mind from the day is, I think we always realize, or I think one thing that very clearly like now is a new kind of like a joint a reality or something that we all seem to like grapple with, is that actually the problems are so big, no one alone can solve them. And it cannot be the government solving them alone. It cannot be the startups themselves solving it alone. It cannot be just the citizens on their own. But I think all what we really need to figure out is how can we create scalable change just because we are somewhat running out of time. And there obviously, it sounds very simple in theory. We know reality can be very, very messy sometimes, but I think this is why it's so important to have platforms like AsiaBerlin as well, having ecosystems talking to each other in this case, but also just, hearing stories like from the entrepreneurs this morning who actually, what are the day-to-day struggles, how did scaling, how did work going, for instance, from Berlin to Japan or the other way around, how ideas are now coming back from Shanghai, from European founders, traveling back to Europe and changing us, how, what are some of the struggles we heard from investors as well, discussing that actually climate or impact-focused investments are going more mainstream than they have ever done before. We had Marley Baum in the beginning. She's advising now on the new Europe funding for the next 10 years, focusing especially on impact startups and in the space of climate change. So I think we are seeing a lot of good efforts. I still think there's a long way to go. I encourage all of you to, support each other, network with each other, and as well, we'll be keeping up the work also at Urban Impact. So if you want to follow us, be part of the journey, feel free to join the movement. And otherwise, thanks again for all the speakers, all the incredible insights we have gotten here, and hope to see you next year again. Bye-bye.